courses from their books. Honoree?
I'm Honoree Corder, and I help aspiring authors become authors by helping them to write, publish, and monetize their books.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And for the record, I did get a notification from LinkedIn that we are live on LinkedIn. So that's
excellent. Good. Hello, LinkedIn.
We've had some questions about connectivity with the software this morning, so this helps me.
Yes, perfect.
So, how's life?
I'm trying to keep everyone's hands and feet inside the bus. Justin says there's no audio.
None. I'm showing audio signals.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
I can't message Justin, but
it's all right.
Turn up the volume, Justin.
I will do an audio test on my side.
Testing.
So I'm going to shut my mic down for a second.
Okay. Now you should be getting no audio, Justin, because we're literally not audible. Are you shutting me down too? No, so I can still talk. Excellent. So what everyone might not know about Lucas is that he also writes fiction, scary, scary fiction. And he can't say anything back to me yet. Oh, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Audio came through fine on LinkedIn, so might want to. Not sure if there's something else going on, but sounded good on LinkedIn.
All right. Very good.
Right.
Excellent.
So, you've got all the things going on. We're both really busy. Everyone's really busy this time of year. I think it's like, especially if you have a service, not based, but service offer, right? Yeah. It's a busy time of year for people to both hire and execute services for small businesses.
Right.
Pretty cool stuff. Are you reading?
I don't know what that is. What is, yeah. I haven't had a chance really to read for pleasure.
Right.
But I read a really great book that is going to come out, I think, between next month and the fall, depending on the turnaround on the book, about sales by a sales professional. And then I have a bespoke book project publishing Monday. So I have read that book 11 billion times.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I have another bespoke book project that will be publishing the end of July, which is an outlier. Normally, I don't suggest that folks publish the end of July or in July and August if you're not in traditional publishing, specifically in the nonfiction space. But this is a special circumstance, special project, special author. And so we're getting that done. And I read that book twice this morning. And I have 2 library books on my bedside table that I think are just getting dusted once a week. So, all right, good. Hello, Justin. Hello. So I'm reading a lot of nonfiction. I've been listening actually to a book about Madonna, which is 45 hours long. Very interesting.
What? 45 hours?
Yeah. Not written by her, but it's a year by year account of her. And so I've just been listening like 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. So probably sometime before I die, I'll finish it. But it's not something I have to focus on or pay attention to. So I can listen to it in an odd moment when I can't really start something new or I'm waiting for someone or something.
Interesting.
I think that's it. Yeah. Just a fascinating person.
Yeah. I mean, love her or hate her, she's had a heck of a ride.
Absolutely. And I don't think I can even remember the first time I heard about her But she was initially popular when I was in high school. And she is love her or hate her, she is an excellent marketer.
Yep.
She's got to be a fairly good businesswoman or have a good team around her. It's very interesting. I saw, actually, speaking of interesting entertainers, I saw a short this morning where the guy was talking about Taylor Swift and how in 2018, so I didn't know this necessarily. I knew the event. I didn't know that it was in 2018, but it was when Kanye went up and at maybe the ACMs and disrespected her in some way. I couldn't tell you what it was. But the guy said, look, in 2018, Taylor made a decision. She had been locked out. She had been given a hashtag like Taylor Swift is over or Taylor Swift is over party or something like that. I'd never heard of that. So apparently the things that sweep the nation, I miss completely. So I wasn't aware of that, but he's like, that's got to hurt a hashtag. And so what she decided was to just become the most productive and prolific she could possibly be. And then there was an image of the 4 albums that she's published since 2018. For the record, in that time, I've written 0 songs. For contrast.
and Kanye hasn't touched her productivity, obviously.
Oh, and then we can throw Kanye under the bus, of course.
Yeah.
So anyway, I am always fascinated by the path that people take when they are successful. And when I find someone who is living a masterclass and I can't just call them up and go, hey, let's be besties. I want to learn all the things that you're doing. I want to get in your head. I study them. And Madonna is one of those people who has really built a great business. So ultimately, am I reading? No, not necessarily for pleasure. But I managed to get in podcasts and things like that.
Oh, so what podcasts are you listening to?
So I have to make sure that I get it right. So I've met a guy.
I'm putting you on the spot here. That is not a question that Honoree expected to hear.
No. So a friend of mine in Nashville, his name is Grayson Garvin. He's a family office wealth management guy now, former pro baseball player. Super nice guy, fascinating. And I was on LinkedIn and I saw that he released his podcast. We had talked about it in conversation, but I wasn't aware that he had released it. It's called The Pursuit. And I saw, as one would do, a little video clip on LinkedIn of different episodes. And I thought, and this is something that most people don't know about me, but here's hacking Honoree 101. If I have something nice to say, I will say it. If I don't have something nice to say, unless I absolutely have to say something, I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
So this was the perfect opportunity for me to listen to a couple of episodes and not, oh, you have a podcast? That's amazing. I'll have to check it out.
Right.
Since I'm mentioning it, I think it's good. I think it's fantastic. So he's talking about the pursuit and about what is success. What is real success? Do we define success by the car we drive, the house we live in, the things we've accumulated, the name dropping, the thing dropping, all of that stuff? Or is success who you become on the journey? So it's really cool because I get to learn about him in a different way. And he's from Georgia. He went to Vandy. He talks about conversations and decisions and how he got there and what his career was like, and then his injuries. I guess there's a surgery called the Tommy John surgery.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a elbow surgery, I guess.
Okay.
So I want to know who Tommy John is. I thought he did underwear, so I don't really.
Did you say Vandy?
Vandy.
Is that Vanderbilt?
Vanderbilt, for those who don't know. Yes. I guess you don't know. So anyway, I listened to last night, right before bed. I was looking and I saw the podcast. And then, of course, I went to go find it and give it a star. And Spotify said, denied. You have to listen to a couple of episodes before you can rate the podcast. And I was like, okay, hold my beer. Put it on 2X and listen to 2 22-minute episodes in 22 minutes. Thank you very much.
I get why they do that. But
I do and I don't. I do and I don't. I understand and I don't. It's like, if I want to give it a good rating, why can I not give it a good rating? Although I think that's also good on the other side too. If I was like, Grayson.
Yeah.
I know that guy. I'm going to give him a 1 star.
That's probably what it is. They probably like, hey, how do we protect someone from just spamming
Either way,
competitors?
Spamming good, spamming not so good. So,
well, I think if you spam, if you're going to prevent them from spamming bad, you've got to tip the scale the other direction just to, interesting.
So the first 8 episodes in season 1, and I know nothing about his plans, but the first 8 episodes were released on April the 30th. And now it's May 15th yesterday. And on May 14th, he released episode 9. So I would guess he's going to release an episode every week or so. So that's great because I now have 7 episodes to listen to, which is fantastic. And I will be doing that. I'm really curious about that podcast. Yeah. So that's what I listen to. And I listen to a couple of mindset podcasts that are very short in the morning. Do you do any of this?
Almost everything I read and listen to these days is fiction. A lot of audiobooks.
Oh, a lot of audiobooks. Okay. Yeah. So I listened to Brian Cain's Mental Performance Daily podcast. And I'm just looking at and then I was a guest on a podcast recently and I hadn't listened to any of the episodes, and I listened to Success Hotline. And then I listen to writer podcasts, which if you're a writer and you're watching this, the Writer Files with Kelton Reed is excellent. Writers Inc. is excellent. Writers Routine is excellent. Cops and Writers is excellent. And then Platform Launchers with John Stongi.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's one more that I think everyone listens to that I just really started listening to, which is The School of Greatness with Lewis Howes.
I've never listened to that.
Yeah. He's got some good stuff on there, some good episodes. I'm subscribed to all the podcasts, and then it's a problem. It's actually how I get a lot done, though, in terms of the house cleaning or if there's a project that I don't really want to do. I'm like, all right, well, I have 74 podcasts in the queue, so I'll just put them on 1.5 or 2 and listen.
See, the cool thing about podcasts in that space are that if you're really big into reading nonfiction, those podcasts are kind of like just additional nonfiction work.
Yeah, they are.
They're topic relevant. They're deep dives. They could be like adjacent to books that you read from the same authors or in the same topics.
Yeah.
A little different than like the fiction market.
Yeah. So interestingly, over Mother's Day weekend, I had decided to take 3 full days off. And then the universe decided, yes, you are. So I had a sick dog and I was under the weather and Byron was under the weather and my mother-in-law was under the weather. And so I was on the couch.
There you go.
Yeah. So it was great. So I did a little binge watching. That was kind of fun. And it was really fun to just go, no, I'm not going to work. No, I'm really just going to watch the next episode. I'm really just going to skip play next episode. Just go. So that was really, it was fun during a not fun time. So there you go.
Squeeze a little bit of relaxation into all the craziness.
Right. And so you are reading? You have been reading? I saw your videos and your book stack. And I mean, I do a little bit of Lucas viewing on the social media because they serve you up to me and now they're recommending all the horror books to me, which is hilarious. Amazon's like, you might want to read this. And I'm like,
you're welcome.
Pretty sure I
don't. I have been listening to on audiobook. I just finished Mary from Nat Cassidy, which was just awesome.
Yeah, you mentioned that last week. So you finished it?
I finished it. And Susan Bennett was the narrator. Just outstanding.
And do you know Nat Cassidy? Do you know her?
I've met Nat Cassidy.
Okay.
We're not like hanging out on the weekends and stuff, but we've met at a few author events. What's that?
Is it like Nat like Nathaniel or Nat like Natalie?
Nat, N-A-T. Is a dude. Oh. Yeah.
Okay, it's a dude. But okay, I was just wondering if you knew him, how you came across his work. I mean, this is an interesting conversation, right? For what we're going to talk about today is how do you discover someone's work?
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
what are the ways you can be discovered?
He's a popular horror writer. So, you know, I've learned about him in the community, and he was just getting ready to release a book called titled Nestlings, right when I started to get familiar with him, but I hadn't read his previous book, Mary, and I'd heard rave reviews about it. And so I was like, well, let me go listen to Mary, and then I'll read Nestlings, because I was fortunate enough to buy a paperback and get it signed by him, and then just hang out with Nat, because he's such a nice guy.
Nice.
So anyways, finished that audiobook. Fantastic audiobook. If you're at all into horror, he's great. He's not extreme. He's not splatterpunk. He's kind of more in line with more of like your Stephen King suspenseful horror kind of writer. Excellent. But also reading, I try to read a lot of indie books. So I'm reading Kitty from SQ, and I'm McGrath is her last name. And I'm reading The Wild Dark from Kat Silva, which is almost like an apocalyptic, if you could just imagine the earth overcome by a mist that's like purgatory on Earth. Kind of crazy.
Isn't that what we're doing right now?
Now, you know, you should get real nervous if you look out your window and you see massive wolves hunting.
Okay. All right.
In the mist.
I was being a little facetious.
Yeah. And then I've also been reading oh God, my brain is going flat because I was just in the middle of thinking when you asked me that question. Sorry. I'm reading a book from Terry Hooker that I just picked up. So the title's slipping. It's dark. I'll have to come back with the title.
Okay. Well, it'll be in the show notes. And so why I'm writing is because everything Lucas says I write down.
She's awesome. And she's super nice. I met her at the AuthorCon. So just super cool. Oh, awesome. Darkness and Dawn. That's the name of the book.
Darkness and Dawn?
Yes.
Okay. Sweet.
From Terry Hooker.
So you're reading all the books I cannot read.
Well, you could read them.
No, I'm saying that you're reading because you don't really have anything going on in your life. So you just have plenty of time to sit around and read.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm getting at right now.
Yeah. So I read those at night, especially when I'm not writing. So the hard part for me, honestly, the hard part for me is balancing the amount of words my eyes see and my brain consumes. Because if I only have so much mental capacity for reading and writing.
Right.
You know, we tend not to think about that too much, but it's not so much doing all the things that can get in the way of me being able to write as quickly. Sometimes it's just the sheer amount of words that my brain is processing. Then I go to turn around and it's like mush to create. Other times I get the right balance and I'm like, I'm ready to rock. So
interesting.
Yep. So that's been a lot of fun working on this EMP book with Zach. So that's been all of my writing, and I'm getting ready to drop the first chapters of my next book in the Whispering House series to my Patreon. So bless the mother.
Hear that, kids? He has Patreon.
Bless the mother.
What are your so bury the child, burn the girls, bless the mother?
Yep.
And then there's a fourth one, right?
Banish the dead.
And then that series will be complete.
Yeah, as of right now, that's it.
As of right now. Okay. Yeah. And so your Patreon, we are going to for sure put that Patreon link so that you can support Lucas.
Super hard to find. LC Marino.
You can buy him a cup of coffee, buy him a bar of chocolate, or pay for a month of college for one of his children someday. So the amount is up to you. You have all the choices.
Yeah, we'll see if I let him
Your
get that
different
far.
packages yet for your Patreon? We haven't talked about that. Let's talk about Patreon in a future episode because I need one. And we also have Substack for this. So, all right, I'm putting it down.
Basically, author subscriptions offer different tiers, and we can kind of talk about how that works. And
sweet. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And what you can do to serve people in those environments to make it just too good to be true. I mean, Tiny Kappas is kind of...
She's a masterclass in everything.
Yeah, kind of just blown my mind with the way she manages hers. But I was talking to David Viergoetz, who's a very successful subscription horror writer, and he said something so simple yet so profound. And I think this goes for any author, no matter what your genre is. Even if you're a nonfiction author and you want to bring business in through your book, they've got to fall in love with you in your book. Like, that's what will bring them through. It's funny that fiction authors sometimes think about that differently than business owners. Yeah, dude, that's the same thing. If you want people on your subscriptions, you have to get them into the stories. That's what brings them to the subscriptions. Right. So anyway, yeah, we can definitely do an episode on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we want to talk about products or services or both today.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is very important. I mean, you and I have had this conversation several times just about our own businesses with each other, striking a balance, because as you said yesterday when we were talking about this offline, we do both of these things.
We do.
Yep, we do both. We're not just products and we're not just services. And we offer both in our businesses. And so some people that get into business for themselves, they decide to go down one route and then possibly expand later. Some people come right in the door with both things, right? They do services and they sell products. But there's implications on the business planning side that you could literally make an entirely different business for yourself if you choose one over the other. So yeah.
Well, there are different things to consider. I think the first thing is, do you want a brick and mortar? Do you want a lifestyle business, right? Do you want to work a little, make some or enough or a lot to support your lifestyle? What does that look like?
Yeah.
I meet an awful lot of people, especially being in Nashville, where there are a lot of incubators here. A lot of people who come seeking funding. And I meet an awful lot of people who say, I am building this business to sell. I've formed and founded and funded this business to sell. In 3 to 5 years, I want to sell it. I want it to be acquired by someone, and they are working to do something to, at some point, have nothing to do with, which I think is so interesting because that's not anything that I have yet done. Right? I mean, I've created assets that I want to make money for me forever, but I've never really thought about, like, I'm just going to do something and then sell a catalog of work or something like that. Interesting perspective on it. So you first have to decide what kind of business that you want to have before you can choose whether you're going to do products or services. And I think there are some other layers in there, but that's the very first thing. You and I do both. We provide services. I do bespoke books. I run a mastermind. Those are services. And we also write books and create courses.
Right.
And other deliverables, which hold the possibility of recurring revenue.
Sure.
And so then in my mind, once you decide what kind of revenue that you want, then you have to say, how soon do I need that revenue? And am I willing to invest time and money and energy into building something that I'm not going to get paid for a while? If you're writing a book, chances are you're not going to get paid for it for a while. It's going to be at least 60 days from the date you publish that you're going to receive any royalties. And it's going to be at least 24 minutes after the day of launch if you're selling books to people before their money hits your bank account. So there are all different sorts of things going on there. But if you're providing a service, someone could legitimately reach out to you today and say, I want you to help me to produce my course. And either through ongoing support or a done for you service, you could make money today. You could engage with someone today and they could wire you the money and you have the money today.
Right.
And so therein lies the rub, or the opportunity, or the conversation, right? Which is, do you want to trade time for money? Or do you want to trade time now for future money and have the time, or both?
Yep.
And you don't have to pick one.
Yeah, it's funny because the more I thought about that whole trading time for money thing when I first got started, the less I understood what it really meant until I got in the middle of it, and you're like, okay, I can feel it now. When I was solely focused on providing services, scheduling was different. It's like you're going to give all your time to your business. If you're primarily products, it's on the management of the development of those products. It's on the marketing and sales of those products, right? It's just not like one-on-one service work or managing projects for other people, but you're managing your own projects. You're still deep in this really intense work. So for me, it was like, what am I spending my time doing rather than am I spending time? There is
right. You're going to spend time.
Oh yeah. Like that time's
you're going to use up your entire day. Is it personal or is it business related?
Absolutely.
Right.
And
so you're going to be doing something.
Right. And the other part of it was, okay, so now I'm like picking which poison I'm drinking because I'm drinking nonstop. It's like, which one do I want to be doing? Do I want to do the marketing?
Consider a protein shake?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was one thing.
Don't drink poison, Lucas. Then I'd be here all by myself. That would be
right. Yeah. Put the poison down. And then the other part of it was like when you provide services to other people, there's a level of interaction there that I think is missing from a lot of product-based business transactions. So if you're the kind of person that really thrives off of collaboration with clients and working one-on-one with people, and it's not just like, and I'm talking mostly about online business at this point. It's a different experience. So not only am I spending my time differently, but I'm also interacting with my customers and clients differently. And so it's a very intimate experience for me in my service work. And that's why, and you and I have both talked about this, why you have to be selective when you're doing that kind of deep collaborative work with people so that you can make sure you guys jive together and everything's going to be fine as far as personalities and perspectives and priorities and all the things. And that's a consideration that I didn't necessarily have to have in the same magnitude as a product offer online. Now, if you own a brick and mortar business, it's obviously a little different because you're going to have people that are going to be standing right in front of you, talking with you, coming in routinely. You're looking for that recurring customer, that recurring revenue. There's a level of obligation to that is way different than the online business obligation for products. Whereas the brick and mortar, I mean, honestly, you and I have talked about this. I've always wanted to open a bookstore. However, I know that if I had a brick and mortar bookstore, I would be in that store all day.
Yes.
So, it's funny because one of the biggest points,
I think you need a book stream.
Yeah, I mean,
I need one. You need one. We all need one.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. By the way, I'm just like an Airstream, period.
Okay.
But I guess the thing I was going to say was I heard a quote recently from someone that said one of the big misconceptions about having a bookstore like that is you don't have any time to read. People dream about sitting behind their counter reading a book while they're waiting for customers to walk in. And so I think it's funny that they said that because it doesn't matter what industry you're in. The message there is you're going to be really busy running that brick and mortar business, regardless of what it is you're selling or what type of services you're providing. Yes. So
always dreamed of opening a hair salon. When was the last time you got a haircut? Well, when I opened my hair salon.
Yeah. Or like
the day before.
Yeah. How what are your work hours like? It's like you're really choosing a lifestyle when you choose the kind of business and whether you provide products or services. And it may just be which of those two you want to have a heavier balance of, right, in your business. So, so you have a bespoke business, which is different than the type of services I offer. Mine are mine are different than yours, right? So like I'm helping someone create products that they have to create. They have to be the voice. They have to be the face. They have to be in their course. They're the expert. They have to develop their curriculum, all the things. With your business, the interaction with the customer is a little different. They depend on me highly for like the technical side of it.
Right.
Yours is, and rightfully so, is has a different level of interaction and complexity. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you chose a bespoke book business?
It chose me, I think. Initially, it was an addition to executive and business coaching that I was doing. A lot of my clients had come to me. This is when I can look back and go, oh, I see what you did there, universe, right? They would say, I discovered you because of one of your books. Should I write a book? Well, of course you should. Well, what should I do? I'm like, well, I don't know what you should do, but I can tell you what I did.
Right.
So it started from, well, yes, we can just add this in your 100 days. I generally, for maybe the last 10 years of my coaching, worked with people in 100-day increments. Now, I might work with them for 3 or 4 or 5 years, but we would work together in 100-day increments, mostly because I believe that a month is a really short runway and a year is a really long runway. And if you have a short runway, you don't see benefits. And if you have a long runway, you procrastinate, or at least anywhere I just said you, add just me. So, people in general. I developed the 100-day STMA, short-term massive action coaching program, which my clients really liked. And inside of that coaching program, there were 2 goals. There were 3 goals, and 2 goals were business, and one of them was meant to be personal. Because a lot of times people go, I want to increase my revenue. I want to increase my revenue. I want to increase my revenue. And they go, but I can stay married or not stay married, or I can take care of my health or not take care of my health. So I would put the personal goal on there, and the personal goal a lot of times became, well, I want to write a book. You wrote a book. I'm really inspired by that. I want to write a book. And so that would become one of their goals in the 100 days. And then I would guide them through my process. And then ultimately I work with very successful people. I worked with very successful people, and they would say, well, how much if you just do it for me? This seems like a lot of work. What happens if you do it for me? So for a long time, I was doing consulting as opposed to providing a service. I would say, well, here's what you do next, and then do this. And before our next coaching session, now you need to decide this, and you need to do that. And so I consulted on a lot of books, and then I just started charging a fee for doing everything. And then once that kind of gained traction, I let go of executive and business coaching and just decided to provide an all-in service. And so it really did choose me. And all along the way, I've had to wrap arms around everything that a book can mean.
Right.
And then learn how to communicate that to people, because there are different levels of publishing and publishing services and author coaching and book coaching and all of those sorts of things. And in now 65 published books over the past 20 years, almost 20 years.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. I don't go out a lot. I mean, literally, I stay home a lot. And also working on hundreds of books, I've learned so much about what's effective and what's not as effective, or what's completely ineffective when it comes to writing, publishing, launching, marketing, and monetizing a book, and deciding to provide an all-in service, and then handling the million little details that it takes to produce a book that is going to be effective for a really long time. There's a lot involved in that. There are multiple trains running on multiple tracks for every single project.
Well, one of the great lessons I think in your story is that your products led to your services, right? It became a natural progression in your business.
Yep.
You know, your books, I mean, they laid the foundation for people entrusting you with handling a book project for them. And it didn't happen overnight. You know, you didn't just publish your first book and then, a month later, people were like, oh, can you do a bespoke book for me?
Well, interestingly, I have a product, Publishing PhD, which is the course, which is a do-it-yourself option. A number of my students have called me after purchasing the course and have said, I'm not doing all this myself.
That's what happened with me and Ray Brem. I said,
I thought I was going to, no way.
Yeah. I want all in on your course so I can make a low upfront investment in figuring out if I want to do this work or not.
Yeah.
You know, and it could be whether I'm going to do it at all, could be whether I'm going to do it myself, or it could be whether I'm going to outsource that work. Those three options as a fellow business owner. Now, if you don't mind, I would like to ask you a question about risks, because I feel like, so when I teach project management at the university, one of the things that my students probably get sick of hearing, because I say it every single night we have a session together, is that risk is the blanket that covers every aspect of a business, every aspect of a project, every aspect of what you're doing. Not in a bad way. We tend to think about risk as like a negative thing. Risk can be positive as well. Opportunities are a positive risk, for example. So when you think about choosing product-based business over or against service-based work, or having both of those things, what are kind of the risks that you considered when you thought about moving from into that type of service industry?
Can I say I'm risk agnostic because I'm a born entrepreneur? When I did my SWOT analysis, like with the threat, I was like, I don't have any threats. I don't have any choice. It's got to work.
Right.
I don't have a plan B.
So I think a lot of that's because you had control over the aspects of the project, right? Like you could do the project yourself if you needed to. You didn't have to outsource a lot of that stuff, right?
Right. I think my only risk now is if a team member does not fulfill their part of the job. So if someone on the editorial team drops the ball, or the designer doesn't get back in a timely fashion because of X, Y, and Z, and I'm just pulling from real world, real things that have happened over the last 20 years,
right?
Then the buck stops with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like, what's the leadership quote that it's like, if the team does well, the team gets the credit. If the team doesn't do well, the leader takes the blame, takes the hit. And that is me every day and twice on Sunday, because other than with an all-in bespoke book package, I'm leaning on a ghostwriter to write a very good book. And I'm involved in that process. But the ghostwriter is the one who is getting the information out of the client's head and creating draft after draft until it's approved.
Right.
If he or she does not do a good job, then I'm going to hear about it from the client. If the book misses a deadline, I'm going to hear about it from the client. And on a few occasions, and this is really the big X factor, right, is the design, right? Because I will say to a client, when we get the first cover design, if it takes your breath away, we have the right cover. Until it takes your breath away, we don't have the right cover. And so a few times we've gotten the design, and my authors are always very nice and very gracious. And they're like, and I'm like, okay, you don't love it. Is there anything about it you like? Well, I'm like, I have no ego around this. I want you to love it. So tell me what you love or you don't love. But they're very nice people. But sometimes they get it back and they're like, this is terrible. I hate this. This is awful. Okay, great. Now I know what you hate. Let's go from there. They think they're going to hurt my feelings. They're not telling me my baby's ugly. It's not a baby. It's a business asset, right? For them. And so we want their business asset to be the most effective that it can possibly be. All of that to say is, when everything goes well, I get the praise, but I put the praise on the team. When everything does not go well, I get the criticism, and it's my job to fix it. The buck stops with me. If there are any mistakes or any challenges or anything that the client doesn't like, then I'm the person that is fully and solely responsible for it, financially, from an execution perspective, everything. So I think those are the inherent risks, but I have never looked at, and maybe this is a blind spot for me, but I've never really looked at something from like, well, what are the risks? What's the potential downside? I'm the optimist. I'm the glasses half full and filling up rapidly. Let's make it happen. Yeah. And every so often I'm like, boy, if that hadn't happened, that wouldn't have been good. I look back, oh, that could have gone so poorly. I just don't look at it like that. I'm always
Yeah.
just like, it's gonna work out. Some unexpected good thing is gonna materialize or happen, or it's gonna work out, or I'm gonna make it work out. I'm gonna Dr. Phil right now. Either you make the right decision or you make the decision right. I don't get too stuck in analysis paralysis. But I know as an engineer, you probably, and if we had Renee on here, she would, as an engineer too, you probably have some sort of Excel spreadsheet for determining risk.
No, but I would shuttle you right out the door if you didn't want to consider risks in an engineering project. I'd be like, hey, we'll catch up with you after lunch, okay?
Okay, Peanut, you go have your afternoon grapes and carrot sticks.
You're awesome. I wish I was you. Well, the reason I say that is just by sheer complexity and dependencies are different. So what I hear,
you can make fun of me later.
Yeah, well, so the dependencies thing really matters, right? And I think it was as a business, as someone starting a business or someone in business that has a dependency on other resources that they don't have control over the outcomes, or their options are super restricted and it's a critical thing, they feel risk differently than someone like you or me who is working very, like, I don't feel the pressure of risk when I'm taking on course clients. Much like you're saying, I'm so confident in that world and I have so much control over the variables of the project,
right?
That to me, the biggest risk is the execution of the client,
right?
Not like executing them, but like their ability to execute on the project.
We're not killing our clients.
Yeah.
We're just,
and so I can tell immediately if in my service work, in my agreements, I have certain things like time boxing the project. Like, hey, this agreement's good until this exact date. Oh, and by the way, there's a paragraph that says we're both able to extend that date if we're both comfortable with doing that. But this date has to exist for a reason. Like, I need you to be on the project.
Yeah, right? Available.
Exactly. And I think I need you to feel like an obligation to get this stuff done in a timely manner.
Right.
To your point earlier about whether we can be motivated by deadlines differently. And it's not a, a good or bad character trait. I just have had that experience enough with clients that I know that it's a great urgency is a good motivator for them. So I give them the appropriate amount of time based on the scope of the project. And then we move forward. And that is a way I've mitigated risk with service work. That conversation doesn't exist in my product-based world. Right?
No, because they buy a course and they may never take it. They may buy a course and they may take it all in the first 24 hours. Yeah. I think the difference between people who want to become authors and people who want to have courses, if I can just guess from my world to yours, is that I think people are fast to go, I want to have a course and move on it and then get stuck. Whereas I think people are slow to say they want to become an author because they think it's going to be this huge undertaking of time and effort, because writing a book is a big deal. They think it's going to be a lot for them. My clients are always thrilled to learn that for a project, they're going to need to spend between 8 and 20 hours on any size of book that I work on. And they can't believe it because that's such a little input of time for such a big output. But once they decide to become an author, they cannot wait. They're always very responsive.
Right.
I've never had someone not get back to me about a book cover.
Right.
In minutes, right? In minutes, if not hours. It's always like, I love that, or, and then we're able to kind of turn around the different options very, very quickly because they're so motivated that once they make that decision, it can't come fast enough.
Right.
With Beth's book, which is, we'll talk about it next week more specifically because it comes out on Monday. But with that book, we commenced our work on January the 15th. And we have I have finished done copies of that book as of, when did I get them? I got them earlier this week before the 4-month mark. So in 120 days, we produced a book. We went from idea, blank page, no book, to finished book that's generating revenue.
She's thrilled.
Well, she's thrilling. So she's just delightful. We've known each other for 20 years. This is our second book that we've done, hopefully the first of many, or the second of many, many in more recent times. And when you are easy to work with and you're very clear on your outcome and you avail yourself when the team needs you, you can produce these results very, very quickly. So I think authors, once they decide they're ready to become an author, they think about it for a really long time. They're in their head about it for a really long time. And once they decide, once we set their Amex on fire, they're ready. Right. They're like, run it, run the card, let's go, go, go. And I haven't had any of those issues ever with my authors on anything. They turn things around. I'll say, okay, I'd really love to have this back from you in a week. And I wake up the next morning and they're like, okay.
Well, part of that, I think, is there's some dream magic at play with a book. And I've like begrudgingly said this before about course businesses. This is kind of like my little stab at my own industry, but like people don't like people dream about like writing a book one day, but people don't dream about like creating a course one day.
They would if they knew how much money courses could be.
Oh yes. I mean, it is definitely
hello.
financial benefit to it.
Yeah.
The other side of it is, with courses, it's like there's less familiarity with the things that go into it. We're so familiar with books. We've held them, we've touched them, we've done all the things with them. Yep. We look at, we know what it takes to write something, but we don't really know what it takes to write something until we're in it. And we know that we can outsource the things we don't need. And it's a tangible thing. With courses, some people come into it with, how hard could it be for me to make a couple of videos? I'm already an expert on the topic. And then once they like look into it for themselves, they're like, hold on, what's this learning management stuff? Right. Like, wait, do I really know what I'm doing here? Like, oh, how am I going to put all of these pieces into this technical solution so I can give a product to a client? That becomes like kind of like the eye opener, I think, for a lot of my course clients, is they've already done a lot of research before they've met me. Right. And they're like, hey, I was like going to do this. And then I started doing this. And then I was like, uh-oh.
Well, doing a course and doing a course well,
sure,
are different.
Yeah.
Doing a book and doing a book well or effectively, right, those are different. And I have done all of the iterations of courses, I think. Mm-hmm. I mean, my very first course 10 years ago, I think it was 10 years ago, was the Prosperity for Writers course. And it was 4 recorded free conference.com calls.
Audio files.
Yeah. And so if you were live on the call, it was still a call. Mm-hmm. If you're listening to the recording, you're listening to a recording of the call. Now, I think it's $47 and I still sell it.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
And I've never heard a bad word about it. Like no one's ever been like, oh man, sure. The only limitation is a different
format or whatever.
Yeah.
But the reason I resisted what I call the grown-up courses for a long time, and it's probably why people resist books, is because in my head, I thought, I don't know how to edit video. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to edit audio files. I'm not sure what blended learning means.
Right.
So I taught what is now Publishing PhD, which is blended learning. And you can tell us what blended learning is in your own words, because you're the expert. But I taught that live over and over and over. 8 sessions over 100 days.
Yeah.
I taught it live. I charged $5,000 for the course. People could come back as long as they want. And then someone said, which session is the pre-launch stuff with the advanced reader team? And your call is 2 hours or 90 minutes. So at what point in the session do I get to that information? Right. And what if I have a question about that, et cetera, et cetera. And so tell us what blended learning is.
Well, and for those that are getting ready to hear this and they're like, oh, wait, is this straying off the topic of product versus services? Actually, no, it actually is very strongly linked to it, because it's the minute you go from on-demand passive product where you're handing them a course and saying, here's your course, have fun with it, right? Let me know what you think.
Yeah, peace be with you.
Kind of like if you were handing a book to them. So that's a on-demand self-paced learning product that everyone is familiar with. The moment you start moving away from that toward a live delivery or a live interaction, you're getting into the blended learning world, which is basically a hybrid course. And so kind of the three main ways are completely on demand, completely passive, completely self-paced. That's more product-based. And then all the way on the other side of the spectrum, you think about live delivery, whether it be over a virtual stream or in person. Those are live courses. You have to be there to teach them. In between them is the blended learning solution or the hybrid learning solution, where there's some on-demand content that you don't have to be present to provide. And there's some level of live interaction with them, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, whatever the case is. And so when I help my clients develop their courses, I'm like, have you taught it before? And they're like, yes. I'm like, how? And they tell me, oh, I used to teach this course live, or I've done
At
it
a
on Zoom a few
university,
times.
right?
Yeah. Or I've taught it, to my own staff in my business.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, when we shift that format, it could change things, not because you're changing it from less of a passive.
Yep.
You're becoming more passive with this product. That changes the way the clients can interact with the course.
Yep.
So when you choose what type of product you build, sometimes you're choosing a passive product that becomes less passive when you start infusing more of yourself into it. And so in that point, you're kind of like blending the passive and the impassive, and you're becoming kind of a quasi hybrid between strict product and service.
Yes. And you can deliver something live, record it, and then deliver it recorded. So it goes from being a service to being a product.
Yep.
With one delivery, which is an interesting, thing.
You know how many clients of mine are like, I can't teach this on video without a student. They just can't get the lesson out.
Oh, interesting.
They need to teach someone to do it naturally. And I'm like, let's stack a Zoom.
Right. Put a Zoom together, record it, and there you go. And then
and we can worry about editing things. And if you do that in a course creation project, there's some sensitivities you have to have to the other people that are included, especially if you're going to turn around and sell this and all those types of things. We would work through that. But anyway, you're on to a very important point there related to the topic of the stream, in that when you choose that type of product, you're choosing whether you want it to be more or less passive.
Right.
Okay. So I have a real quick question for you.
Okay.
Because this is real significant on the services side.
Okay. I'm ready.
But I see it very significantly on certain product industries, not so much with books, because books have a very well established norm for pricing, availability, distribution.
Sure.
But when you start getting into things that you sell more direct, like your courses, and they're not part of some greater market where there's market controls, price sensitivity for services and price sensitivity for certain products can be a really big distinguishing factor for whether you want to take on that type of offer in your business. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach price when you decided whether you wanted to do services or not, or products or not?
Yes.
I know it's a big equation.
It's kind of a big question. Let me do the best I can in 4 minutes to answer the question. Or better yet, in a minute. The way that I price things is not around time.
Right.
Although time is a factor. I understand probably more than I ever have that when I'm talking to someone or I'm working on something for them, they are getting the benefit of my experience, my knowledge, my education, everything I've ever done with that before in that moment. So if I'm asked a question and I'm able to answer the question and it is helpful to them, then they don't have to know everything else and figure anything else out. I'm using the tip of the spear.
Right.
And that can be very valuable. And I think that one of the gifts that I give people is the ability to see the value that they're bringing to someone, not the time they're bringing to someone. If you can recognize that you do not have an infinite amount of time.
Right.
Right. And And there's a book called Value-Based Fees by Alan Weiss. And did you think I was going to bring that up?
No, I wasn't expecting you to bring that up, but I laugh every time I hear about that book because of the price of the ebook. It just makes the point.
The price of the book is valuable because of what he says in the book.
Yep.
And he
throws the market right out the window.
Yes. Yes. Yep. When you are providing something that someone cannot get anywhere else, then you can provide more. If you are providing something that's a commodity that people can get in a lot of places, you can't charge an exorbitant amount or a higher amount unless you bring something else to the table that is not easily obtained.
Right.
So when I'm talking to someone about what it is that I do, I tell them I've written this many books, published this many books in this many languages over this amount of time. This is what I've been involved in. If you can find a peer of mine, I'd like to talk to them. So when I do something for you, I'm going to do it better than you could do for yourself because I have all the knowledge and experience and all those things in that area. So that's how I work on pricing, is what is the value? Now, Alan Weiss says that if you are the literal expert on something and you've written a book, which is interesting that he says that, you can charge 25 to 50% more. And when you're thinking about your fees, you want to charge a fee that represents 10% of what their upside is.
Okay.
When I look at charging for a book, I look at what's the potential upside of a book. Now, I've come to a level of fees that I'm comfortable with. I feel that I am well compensated for the time, money, and effort and energy that I'm getting in return. What's interesting is that when I get into conversation with my clients, because part of what I provide in addition to a book is a way for them to monetize their book, thus the Write, Publish, and Monetize part of my 30-second commercial. When I get into how are you going to turn this book into money? What are the ways that you know you're going to turn it into money? And what are the ways that I know you could turn it into money based on my experience? And a lot of times people would say, oh, I'd never thought of that, or I would have never have thought of that. Well, that's why you have me, right? That's why you hire a consultant that knows what they're doing.
Right.
When I get into how are you going to monetize this book? And it is, and very often they are shocked when the least of my concerns are the royalties. Right. I am not super excited if you sell a book for $10 and you make 70% or $7. Right. I am real excited when you give someone a book and they say, oh, I do want to invest my money with your investment firm. And they will earn, their fee will be $180,000 a year for all the years that client invests with their firm. So right. If they have invested $75,000 with me and they're earning $180,000, they're earning a 2.25x on their investment. So they'll get two times the investment every year, let's say for 10 years. So they've spent 75, they've made 180 times 10, which is 1.8 million. Would you logically invest $75,000 in something knowing that you're going to get 1.8 million
right
over a decade? That's one client.
Right.
So when I start to get into, if you only got 2 clients a year and you made 3.6 million over the next decade, does it make sense for me to light your Amex on fire? And in 6 months, you're an author? And they go, heck yes, it does.
Right.
Right. So yep. That's how I look at it. I look at it from the perspective of what's the ROI, the potential ROI, and what are all of the ways there could be an ROI. So yeah, sure. We probably want to sell your book on Amazon so that someone could discover you and think that they're going to invest their money with you. But more likely, I'm going to find a path, right? I'm trying to cross the river. And we've got stepping stones. What are the stepping stones? What are we going to step on in order to get you to the other side where you're generating a lot of revenue as a result of your book?
Right. So you're using a product to sell services, which I think is amazing. And you're looking at the product not only as a product, like a profit associated with the sale of that product, but the product's potential to then sell a service and market a service. So
Yes.
I love that. And I also think that and this is specifically for the nonfiction world, when you have a product like a book that you can do that with. I mean, think about how much you're spending on Amazon ads and all these things. People are like, I don't want to just give that book away. It costs me $5 or $10 to print it. I'm like, man, you spend $200 to $500 a month on Amazon services, ads. You could be putting that money into buying books and handing out books and eventually getting a client out of that. If you got one client out of 100 books that you gave out,
right,
you clear well over, right?
Yes, I'm happy to give out hardcover copies of my book that cost $8 or $9, or the soft cover books that are the small, right? Your first nonfiction book, I've given probably 100 of those away. And I have 5 books that I have done from those books that I've given away. And we'll do more books from some of those 100 that I've given away, because people are very slow to decide, now I'm ready to move forward today. Let's go.
Perfect.
And so I don't look at it like, how much did the book cost me? I look at, what is the opportunity on the other side of giving that book away? Who am I giving the book to?
Right.
Knowing, and this is the last thing, and I think we end with this, is that a book is not a piece of trash.
Right.
I have a business card on my desk right now, and at some point it's going to go in the trash can. I'm not going to hang on to it because it's precious. I'm not going to pass it on to someone. I might make an introduction, but ultimately that's a piece of trash waiting to happen. If you have a poorly done book, probably it's still going to go to the Goodwill.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
I have a really hard time throwing away a book. I think we are conditioned to really understand that books are the ticket to ride, right? We treasure books. We don't throw them away. We don't throw them in the trash. We'll find another place for them. We don't throw them in the trash.
Right. We'd rather just give it away than throw it away. I'd rather find a new home for it. So that's a value, man. That's a valuable product.
That's a valuable product. And so I will always find a place for the book. But otherwise, your book can live on and on and on, and it's a force multiplier. And yesterday I was in a lunch meeting, and two quick things. 2 things happened. One, the host of the luncheon showed up with a stack of books and gave a book for an author that wasn't even there, a copy of that to everyone that was there. Wow. Which was really cool, because now that book is there, is in the hands of 20 people who didn't have it before. The second thing that happened was one of the gentlemen that was in attendance, when I was talking about what I did, he said, your book is a force multiplier, because it can go everywhere all at the same time.
Right.
I can only talk to you about me helping you to write one book at a time. Mm-hmm. But my book can talk to thousands of people simultaneously on the 4 corners of the earth, and be working very hard on my behalf, even while I'm not working.
Right.
So we can talk about the benefits of books another day, but that was a great last question that it took me 10 minutes to answer. Thanks, Lucas.
Well, I mean, it's good to see how the two can be complementary, right? Like, yes, 100%. And that you start to think about your business investment differently. Yes. I don't cringe when it comes to spending thousands of dollars on producing a book, because I know that the potential ROI, I mean, I can get it back in one contract, like one service contract it far exceeds the price of what I'm going to spend self-publishing that book.
Yes. Yes. We should talk about the cost of a book versus the potential ROI sometime.
All right.
Write it down.
All right, guys. Well, Miss Honoree, do you have anything else to add?
No, I just want to thank everyone for listening or watching. And if you liked what you heard, we have lots of episodes to go back and watch or listen to. So you're going to want to subscribe, ring the bell, check out our EBMC Substack. I am producing articles, and you will produce articles that will not be available anywhere else.
That's right.
So that you'll want to get in there and get access to that content, in addition to finding us on all the places. And of course, we will be here. Same bat time, same bat channel. Do people still say that? Or is that an old person thing?
I'm saying it. We're doing it.
Okay. All right. I'm here for it. We're going to be here for it next week at the same time. So we hope to see you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. We will come back and answer them. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
That's right. If you guys are interested in learning how to self-publish your own book, go check out empirebuildersmasterclass.com. We've got a link down below for our author success bundle, and we will see you guys next week. Take it easy.